Welcome to my apiary. I actually got a truck in my garage. This is not the truck I need to fix, but it's a truck and it's in my garage. So that's a big step forward. Get the little truck out and clean up the garage a little bit more. Then I'll get the big guy in, at least, and jack him up and take some wheels off. See what I see. Well, the garage is prepped and the moment is here. The big guy is going in for an operation. Oh, this really is my favorite truck. Even when I had my red truck, nice new truck, I get in this one and I just feel right at home. So there's a big diesel, so you're waiting for the glow plugs here. It's not glow plugs in this engine. That's a misnomer. It's a grid heater. It looks like this is telling me there's some water in the water separator. So that's a good system to have, especially on a diesel engine, water separator. So I'll service that once in the shop. I'm gonna have a tank of fuel, so that's worth about $200. And I'll put the camera down so I don't crash into anything getting out of here. See if I can do this without crashing into something. It's kind of weird. I don't drive my vehicles into this garage often. They don't look like they'll fit. However, that door is a 10-foot door. And that's wider than the standard door is 9 feet. Looks like I've got enough room side to side. If I get the back end in. So, got some space here to work. Working on that wheel, first of all, anyway. Might have to turn it around later and work on the other side. I guess if I was really hurting for a few more inches, I could take that ball mount off of there. But it seems okay. It seems okay. I've got some space to work here. Much more space than it looks like in the cab. Certainly on this side. I may be able to even work on this side without moving the truck again. So, let the games begin. Here is the offending member, or at least the location of it. You see this rust staining here. That wheel and that cap are not rusting. This is completely, well, almost completely my bad. My bad for leaving it so long, because I went right through the linings on this side anyway, and it started chewing into the rotor, and so it got iron dust on everything, and that has sat there since October. So all that iron dust just kind of washed into areas and started rusting over the winter. So that's all that is, just needs some cleanup. I need to take that hubcap off and loosen all of those wheel nuts, and then I can jack up the truck, put a stand under it, and pull that wheel. I'm not looking forward to this at all. I've done this so many times, many times over the years, but when you're working on a truck of this size, you're working on a half-ton, that's a completely different deal. You work on a 3/4 ton or a 1 ton or even bigger, things get so heavy duty. Fasteners are so hard to crack loose, and you know, everything is just a real struggle. So I'm hoping I don't run into too much of that, but you know, I'm preparing myself for the worst in my mind. (15/16) This breaker bar is not very big. We'll see what happens. It's working so far. Okay. Okay. Pretty tight, but coming off of there. You can use gravity and weight and stand on that. It's just a little dicey because you can slip and kind of hurt yourself if you're not careful, if you're not lucky. Usually I can pull with just about as much force. Just at the right angle, which that one is not quite right. Okay, that's 8. So now I need to lift that up. I do have an air impact, but it doesn't have nearly as much power as I can give it with a breaker bar. I can't find my air impact. So I'll do it the old-fashioned way. It's been on there a while. They would have been off the last time when I had these new tires installed, which was early November 2020. Also, a little bit of context. My jack is heavy duty enough to lift this truck, but it doesn't have a lot of extra. I think it's a 2.5 ton or something. You know, which is 5,000 pounds. And this truck empty weighs about 8,500 pounds. And empty, it's very front heavy because of that inline 6 turbo diesel under the hood. It's a very heavy engine, and it's not to be underestimated how much weight that engine puts on the front wheels. This is sometimes difficult. Sometimes. It's got to put all those wheel nuts back on, and don't tighten them up. Leave them back, I don't know, 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch, and lower it down, drive the truck ahead, and hit the brakes. Preferably in a corner. You turn the wheels, go in a curve, hit the brakes, and that'll break that free. It won't come off or anything because your wheel nuts are still there. It worked. It worked. Not only that, I found my zoom. Here, impact. I got the jack stand under the axle now. Much nicer situation, a little higher. Problem is, you put the tire back on, you lower it down because that tire weighs a lot. In a shop, you may have a thing called a tire jack. You can bring it up and lift it in place. Typically, they use those for even bigger trucks, though. I just hate lifting. I can lift things, but man, I pay for it. I pay for it. I can deadlift a couple 100 pounds, but boy, I sure pay for it. Pay for that for a couple days after I do something like that. And the problem is, I used to lift things when I was younger, and now I'm an old man, and I remember doing things that I shouldn't do now, and I try, and it doesn't turn out well. Okay, because the root of the problem here is this caliper is not sliding the way it should. It slides on pins, and the pins, well, I should go back to the root of the problem is the fact that I don't drive this truck as much in the winter. You don't drive something, things start to seize up. So that's the something. Those pins kind of get rusty and seize up, and then the caliper doesn't slide the way it should. And so there's pressure on those pads now. Yeah, the inside of it is, the outside actually, I was thinking, well, maybe I don't have to. The inside is really bad, very scored. Fortunately, this rotor is separate from the hub. So it's, again, it'll come apart right here, and I can see that it's separate from the studs. If that's a hub rotor, then the studs are pressed into the rotor, and then it's the rotor, the hub and bearing and the whole thing, and that's a big piece of money. This is going to be big enough piece of money, so I don't need to compound that. All right, I should have a light, but I think what I need to do is take these slider pins out to start with, and then this caliper should pull off of here, linings and all, and it should be ready to support that somehow with a rubber strap. Then a 1/2 inch. That is a 1/2 inch fastener. Okay, so we'll crack that loose. Pretty small wrench, and it's going to be tight, I'm sure. So here's a little trick you can use. You can take your wrench, put it on your fastener, and then you can take a bigger wrench and lock it into the open end like that and get a lot more leverage. You kind of have to be careful because it can slip on you. You always want to watch where your hands are going to go if something lets go. When I was young, I worked as a mechanic for a while, and boy, I was always smashing my knuckles on something. So that wasn't that tight. I turned it 1/2 turn, and I can do it with my fingers now. Okay, so that's the bolt. Looks like a grade 5 or grade 8. The other one. Of course, the one I can't see is going to be snug all the way out. Yeah, I could get a socket. More time than energy right now. Get up, get a socket, I'll just sit here and do this. Wow, I get a perspective on things here. This rotor, it's a vented rotor, so there's an outside and an inside and then vents in between. And so the outside part is twice as thick as the inside part. So I've taken a lot off of that. I hope they don't punish me too much when I go to buy it. I'm sure they'll punish me plenty. Any guesses? Any guesses what that kind of thing costs? No. There's also this carrier system. A long time since I've done a brake job. Sometimes the carrier and all flips up out of the way. I've never had a little car. It was so nice. At one 10mm bolt, you take it up, you pull that bolt out, and the whole thing just goes click back like that, supports itself. You pull the linings out, put new linings in, click it back in place, put the bolt in. 5 minutes to do a brake job on that car. It's a great massive bolt in the bottom. Similar to one on the top. Turn the wheel out so that I can work a little easier here. And so I've taken the two bolts out, these sliders. These sliders actually seem to be pretty free. I was worried that they were seized up, but they are free. And the other thing that needs to slide is there's these metal clips here, and the brake linings slide on that metal clip, top and bottom. So that's the other part that needs to slide. The other thing that needs to slide is the pistons. There's two pistons, one there, and they push in tandem, and they need to slide back and forth. So I have to see what's wrong here, because what happened was this was not sliding properly, and ended up putting pressure on the inside lining too much, constantly wore out the lining, and then the backing wore out the rotor. So I think it's probably the piston that's hung up. You can try to grab the lining with this screwdriver. See, there's crap in here, because I need to push the piston back a bit in order to get the caliper. The caliper is free. It should pivot up out of the bottom here, but it's locked. I can't even turn the rotor, it's locked. It's completely seized on that rotor. So yeah, there's something wrong here, and I think it's the pistons. I think the pistons are messed up. So this is likely going to be a little bit of movement there. Likely going to be a caliper change. Calipers, I just called about parts, and calipers are about $120. That rotor's expensive, about $220, $230, I think they said. And then the linings will need to be changed, and I think there was like $80, $90 for linings. So I don't know what to pry on here. That's totally my fault. I knew there was a problem. I just kept driving it. And now I have to sleep in the bed I made. I've seen people have to take this whole carrier off. Take the carrier and the caliper and the rotor off in one piece. Thankfully the rotor is not seized, it's floating around in there. So once I can get the caliper free, the rotor will fall right off. No problem. I don't know if I just caused that problem or that was my problem. These seals are screwed, and these pistons are not metal, they're ceramic, and that piston has disintegrated. So I'm thinking that piston problem was kind of the root of the issue. And the only fix for that is a caliper replace. Look at that lining. It's just falling apart. And this lining, there's nothing left of it. There's beyond nothing left of it. All this needs to be cleaned and lubed. In order to get that rotor off, however, this carrier needs to come off. The rotor's loose, but it's not going to slide out of there. Binding on here, so it definitely has to come off. And there's two ginormous bolts that hold that on. Not best case scenario. Oh, it's loose, and it's loose again. Son of a gun. 18mm, but it's turning. Yeah, why do you can buy all the wrench and socket sets in the world, and they won't have 15mm sockets, and they won't have 18mm sockets. Why is that? Somebody tell me why that is. Just so they can charge you $20 for a wrench set and charge you $20 for the 18mm socket to go with it? I don't know. Hope they give me core on that caliper with broken piston. I wonder it wouldn't slide. Okay, that big thing out of the way. That big rotor comes off. So you can see the difference here. the difference in thickness inside and outside. That's how much I took off driving it when I shouldn't have. That turns now. I can grease that joint while I'm here. So for all the trouble this one was to take off, I took the other side off in probably less than 5 minutes. It wasn't all baked and welded together, first of all. You see how the linings are. I mean, even the good side of this one is nothing compared to this one. So there's really nothing wrong on the other side. The caliper is in good shape. The rotor is in good shape. So it'll get new linings on the other side. And this side will get a rotor and a caliper and linings. My only remaining task here is to get this brake line off of this caliper so I can take that. It's about $80 core return on that. They generally rebuild those instead of just making new ones. They just put new sliders and pistons and stuff in them and refurb them up. And that's how we can. I mean, it's good to recycle, and it's good to, you know, I can get that part. That's a pretty big heavy part for $120. So I'm happy about that. But I need to take that back. Got my new truck parts, so I'm gonna fix the truck, put this brake system back together. And it's always nice to get new shiny car parts, so I'm gonna show you what I got here. Okay, I got a perfect stop high carbon rotor here. The premium was a lot more money. It was probably 80% more than the non-premium option, and it was a bit of a difficult choice. However, this is a pretty heavy truck, pulling pretty heavy loads, and usually when I'm using this truck I'm pulling a load, or pulling a heavy load. So I went for the premium option. High carbon, it's black. And it's very heavy, very heavy. So it looks like that'll do the trick. If it fits. I'm sure it'll fit. Now, unfortunately, I get $80 return on this caliper, but I set it on the bench and the guy said, oh, I need that bracket too. So I need to go back there and get my $80. But that's good, because what that means is with the new caliper, and I got the premium caliper as well, with the new caliper, comes complete with bracket, complete with new slide pins, brand new slide system, new caliper, new banjo for the fitting, and those little parts that I said needed to be cleaned up come with the new one. So that's nice. So that's where the fitting goes. The banjo goes on there. So that's going to be super easy to mount. Just the two big bolts, top and bottom. And not only that, I also got the premium brake linings. But they come with the clips too. So I've got new clips for both sides. And a spare set of clips. So that's the linings for both sides. And what I'm interested to see is, how does the new lining thickness here compare with the right hand side? So there's not much off of that. So these brakes that I'm taking off don't have that much life on them. It just was a seized up caliper that messed everything up. So the right hand side will be okay. That caliper was not changed. Neither caliper was changed at that time. So that's why things went wrong. And it was a tough call for me with this caliper. You know, this was only $120 for this setup. That's a lot of go and a lot of stop for $120 to not replace the right hand side. I'm still questioning that. I'll mull that over in my mind while I put the left side together. It would be so easy to change that now while it's apart. Freshen up both sides with brand new calipers. Yes, the rotor was the expensive part. This nets out about 120, and that rotor was over 200. So the right rotor is fine, and the right caliper seems fine too. And I know the problem was caused by and limited to the left side. So that's what I'm telling myself, to save another $120. But I also save a lot of work if I put it on now. So that's always the compromise, right? All right, we got some nice new parts. Look at that. Beautiful new rotor. High carbon, it's all black. I guess that's why it's black. I don't know. Carbon is black, right? Carbon was the enemy, but I guess in this context it's not the enemy. Now this caliper is all mounted together with the bracket, but I need to take that apart so it slides nice on there to get the linings in, because I need to put the bracket on first. And this bracket goes on the inside. Now, just so you're not misinformed here, this is not a how-to video. It's just what I'm doing today. I'm not pretending that I'm showing you how to do a brake job in your truck. A friend of mine I was talking to just the other day, I mentioned, yeah, I did a brake job on my truck, and he said, he had an F-150. And he said, yeah, I just got a brake job on my truck. And he said, it cost me $5,000. I think he said that. $5,000 something. I thought, did they give you a new truck or what? You know, what'd you get for that? Even at labor rates, you know, rotors, calipers, and linings for both sides would cost me about $700, $700 or $800. If I had to put hubs on it, that would, I think, be another $1,000. I think they're about $400 to $500 a piece. So even at that, we're well south of $2,000 for parts. And you see how difficult this labor is. It's not that difficult, particularly for a seasoned mechanic. I mean, I'm just some hacker, doesn't know what he's doing because he's using 11/16 wrench when he should be using a 7mm, no, 11. What is that? That was 18, I think. And he said, oh yeah, I've done it at dealership. And I said, well, that's why it cost you so much. Dealerships, you know, dealerships have a name. They're called stealerships, and I don't know why they continue to, you know, foster that kind of relationship and that kind of an image. You say, well, all mechanics are, well, they're not. Not all mechanics are like that. If your mechanic is like that, you need a new mechanic. I've had lots of mechanics in my life. They're honest, hard-working people. And they're not crooks like dealerships tend to be. Almost exclusively. I've never seen in my life an honest dealership. Always gotten ripped off. and cheated and lied to. Should look up the torque spec on that and torque that up. I've got a torque wrench here. Now I was going to grease this before I got into that, and that's right there still, so I better do that. Here's a piece of history. This is my dad's grease gun. Kind of the downside is it's got a fixed tube here, so if you don't have real good access you sometimes can't get it in there. Plus it's got a lever, which is great for getting some pressure, but it also uses up space. And what's kind of unique about this grease gun, and I don't know if you can see it, right here it says made in Western Germany. Okay, so you know very well that's made between Second World War and the fall of the Berlin Wall, which was Reagan administration. I can't remember the year. Let's see if I can get this in here. Okay, Dad. Oh, in there. Oh, there we go. Not many things you can grease these days. Let's see if I can get it on this ball joint. Oh, I can't. It's too long. I'll get my other one. That's my other one. My brother gave me this. It's a nice, I don't know what the brand is. It's just a really nice, well made, I think it's American made grease gun. A little harder to pull because it's a trigger. I use it mostly for greasing my tractor. Coming out around that fitting. I think it went in there. Hey Google, caliper bracket, torque specification, 2006 Dodge Ram 3500.
On the website brakeandfrontend.com, they say, the heavy-duty front brake caliper bracket has a torque specification of 275 feet per pound. Do you want a little more context?
Yes.
The heavy-duty front brake caliper bracket has a torque specification of 275 feet per pound. The rear caliper bracket for the heavy-duty caliper has a torque specification of 163 feet per pound for the upper bolt and 190 feet per pound for the lower bolt. Both versions have a torque specification of 32 feet per pound for the guide planes.
Oh, 32. Okay, so we got 275 for the big ones and 32 for the small ones. These used to be a really, really expensive tool. It's a torque wrench. It's a kind of a ratchet wrench. That you turn this knob and that tightens up a spring inside. So tighten that. I don't think I can go that high on this wrench, because that's only 150. We'll see what it seems like at 150. So long. Well, it's more than 150. But my wrench doesn't go to 275, so. The other one was 32. It's 50. That's 32. Okay, linings. Now there's a wear indicator here. That little clip. It scrapes on the rotor when the pads get down, and it's still safe. So once you hear that, you need to get in and change your pads. Just hold the caliper from pulling out of the bottom like that. Now my lining is falling out again. Okay, in there. Sometimes they just slide right in, and sometimes they don't. Seems like a really good place to pinch your fingers. Okay, that one's in there. Beautiful thing. That's about $23 right there. Now I'll go for another $23 on this side. Kind of weird. Binds on that. I want to tap it, but I really shouldn't have to tap it. For my next trick, I put this heavy caliper on here. The pistons are already pulled right to the back, so I just need to pull out the slide bolts. The slide collars need to come back a little. Oh, that goes in like that. That's what. Catch a few threads so it's not going to fall on the floor. Check the bottom. So this pivots out first, and then that one slides down. I think that's a 13 millimeter, but it's also a 1/2 inch. 13 probably fits it a bit closer though. I'll get a 13 to torque it. The last assembly is to get that banjo, get the hose fitting, put the banjo bolt through it, and that has to be bled, so that's the bleeder. Okay, that's supposed to be the right one, and hopefully Google is correct about this torque setting. When this wrench goes click, then it's tight. It's very, it's not tight at all. That's it. It feels like it's not tight enough. Okay, that's what Google says. So I think I can see 2 copper washers on there. And there's 2 copper washers here. I don't think we need more than one. Just a little dust plug in there. And so this banjo, and I call this a banjo, but I don't know if you can see it. There's a hole in the end of the bolt here, and there's also holes in the side of the bolt, there and there, I think. Oh no, there's only one in this. A lot of times it goes right through. And so what happens is, this is a fitting with a slot around like this. And so it's just a reliable kind of a fitting. If it's going to screw up, it'll be this, and that's easy to replace. But it uses single-use copper washers to seal. I should look the torque spec on this too. Oh yeah, that was my 11. So I'll just get that in there. So you can see how that caliper slides nicely in there. That's what you want. That's what you want. Okay, I looked that up. It's at 22 foot-pounds. So set my wrench at 22, which is not very high for this wrench. That's 22. But it's a pretty small fitting, so. I don't have the guts to make it any tighter. It's a pretty long wrench. We'll bleed them up, stomp on them, see if they leak. That's the litmus test, I guess, isn't it? If it doesn't leak, it doesn't leak. Okay, both sides are all together and ready to bleed the brake caliper on this side. I need some help with that, so I'm going to have to wait till a little bit later. Now, I've got a step ladder here. It's only a 5-foot step ladder, it's not real big. But I'm attempting to change the fuel filter, which is just a little element kind of a thing here. The housing is inch and an eighth size fastener. Well, it's not a fastener, it's just the size of the thing on the lid. You can't really see that very well, but it's right there. So I've got to get this long wrench in here and have room to swing it, which you wouldn't think I would, but I do. Not lots, but I do. And that's one of the beauties of an inline 6, is they're a bit longer, but you have far more space in your engine bay, and they're far simpler than a V, like a V8. A lot of trucks have V8 diesel. Light trucks, anything really heavy duty, got an inline 6. Anyway, so I've got that loosened right up. I can't even take a picture of it while I do it. So I can't hardly reach it. But get that off of there. Takes a bit of turning. The diesel today, you see how nice and white this filter is, and that's how white the filter was when I put it in here. The diesel has biodiesel in it, and that causes all kinds of algae growth. And look at the filter, and algae is what plugs up a lot of filters. So I have to change this out. And that just pulls off of there. It's just held on with some little clips there. So take it off. There's a new O-ring. Here comes with a new filter. And then assembly, reverse of disassembly. Okay, that was pretty easy. I just yanked that off of there. Put the new O-ring on here. not quite down there. Just clip the new one in there. Make sure you put it the right side up, because that has to go on the fitting at the bottom to get filled with fuel, and then it just goes right back down in there and twist to close. So that's the 1.125". It would be better to have a socket. I don't know that I have a socket that big. Maybe. So I gotta stick that back down in there. Okay, that's difficult. I was actually right up here kneeling on this with my head way up there and reaching down, because I had to put down pressure on that cap to make it grab the threads. I emptied the water separator while I was up there, so we're good there. I have an oil change to do. However, my oil change pan is laying outside under 3 feet of snow, so I'm not sure what's going to happen there. We'll consider that once we get the brakes bled and the wheels back on. So for some context, this is a 2006 truck. It has about 250,000 miles on it, and that's miles, not kilometers. This is actually a US made truck. It's in pretty darn good shape. That Cummins turbo diesel is an absolute joy to run, and to run and own and drive. I just love that engine. I like almost everything about this truck. What I don't like is the idea of these strut rods for opening the hood. Just because it's something that wears out and they go bad, and then that's garbage. I far prefer things like the spring system that we used to have, or even a prop rod, which is what this broom is doing right now as a prop rod. So these have gotten, they've still got, I can't push that down. They've still, got a lot of pressure to them. But they have lost some of their pressure. And if the weather is cold, or if there's any snow on the hood, for example, or ice, it's a little bit heavier, it won't hold the hood up. So you end up with a piece of wood or something to hold the hood up. So it was actually quite some time ago I asked my wife for new strut rods for Christmas, and she bought me new strut rods for Christmas, and I had never installed them until today. So there's my new strut rod. That's actually a smaller diameter than this one. Atlas. That's an Atlas, and this is a Arana. More than better. More than what? No, you wouldn't say that, would you? Yeah, more than better, it says. More than better. It's more than... Okay. So what has to happen here is, to get the old one off, there's a little clip here that clamps around the ball. There's a ball mounted on the hood and on the frame. And so to release that, I need to put my screwdriver in the little slot and pull that back. I think to put it on, it might just go right on there. But that's how I got the other one off. So we'll see. We'll see if this will press on here. There's the ball here. And that's, well, that could not have been easier. I wonder if the hood goes up further. Okay, well, how hard is that? It was a little bit harder getting it off, but boy, not difficult at all, really. And I wish I'd have done this a long time ago. I kind of thought it would be a little more difficult. It sure is anything but difficult. Getting this little clip off of the old one is the absolute hardest part. It's really not that hard. Pull that up. Push it out. Push this one up. And it's out. Push this one on. Boy, it didn't even snap on it, just went on there. Turn it around. Oh, that thread's on there, so can't turn it the wrong way. Need to make sure I tighten it on. I just have to push the hood up a little, and it's in there. Holy smokes. Well, that was easy. Get it up that far, and it goes by itself. That's awesome. I'm very happy with that. Okay, so there it is. Wheels are on. It's on the ground. Torque the lug nuts. Guess who torqued the lug nuts for me? My helper. She was the helper to bleed that caliper too. That took a bit of work, and but it's working good now. I think it'll be just fine. Looking forward to driving the truck with the new brakes. So thanks for following this saga. Say goodnight, Gracie.
Good night, Gracie.